When he took off his shirt, I was almost speechless. This man definitely didn't fit any stereotypes about age. Hi, everyone. What starts as a clumsy accident at an art gallery spirals into a romance that defies age, expectations, and even the law. Have you ever fallen for someone completely unexpected? Let me know in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more unbelievable love stories. The autumn evening in Chicago should have been ordinary. A slight chill in the air promised the coming winter, the leaves rustling on the sidewalk under the warm glow of the streetlights. I was on my way to my best friend Chloe's art show, expecting nothing more than a predictable night. Superficial conversations, a glass of cheap white wine, and maybe a few quirky characters to tell stories about later. I never expected that this evening would be the beginning of a story that would turn my world upside down. A story so unusual, it borders on unbelievable. Inside, the exposed brick gallery was noisy and cozy. The walls showcased abstract art that I had to squint to understand, and the eccentric attire of the guests only added to the eclectic vibe. There were girls with neon hair, guys in fedoras indoors, and self-proclaimed art critics passionately discussing color palettes. I grabbed a glass of wine and wandered among the paintings, feeling increasingly out of place until I saw him. He sat at the makeshift bar, an island of calm and confidence in the organized chaos. He seemed utterly unfazed by the commotion around him. He wore a dark blue shirt, its collar slightly unbuttoned. His salt and pepper hair was impeccably styled, and an expensive watch glinted on his wrist. He was definitely not a hipster, and he certainly wasn't ordinary. He had a different aura, a stillness that commanded attention. And of course, I stared a little longer than I should have. And of course, that's when my clumsiness peaked. My wine glass slipped from my hand, shattering on the floor with a sharp, piercing crash. Wine splattered everywhere, landing inches from his expensive leather shoes. A great first impression, right? Is everything all right? His voice was a low, smooth, and slightly husky rumble that seemed to cut right through the gallery's noise. I bent down quickly to pick up the shards, my face burning with embarrassment. "Yes, just unexpected," I said, forcing a weak smile. "Like many good things in life," he remarked, a twinkle of amusement in his eyes. He gestured to the empty stool beside him. "Have a seat before there are any more casualties." How could I refuse? His name was Julian, a wine merchant. He told fascinating stories about New York in the 90s that left me captivated, my laughter mingling with his. When I confessed that my favorite dinner was instant ramen, he let out a deep laugh, a sound that resonated in my chest. "Okay, that needs to be fixed immediately." My heart did a frantic flip. This was the most interesting man I had ever met. As the gallery event wound down, he turned to me and said, "I know a place that serves the best Bordeaux in town, shall we?" I smiled, feeling a thrill of undeniable excitement. "Why not?" Julian drove me to a small French restaurant tucked away on a cobblestone street, hidden from the city's hustle. The air smelled of rain, cinnamon, and vanilla. He helped me out of his sports car, his palm warm on my back, a simple touch that sent a shiver down my spine. Inside, vintage chandeliers cast a warm glow on dark wooden tables, and candles flickered in time with soft French melodies. "They make an amazing duck confit here," Julian said, running his fingers along the wine list. He looked up and winked. "I'm saying I want to surprise you." And he did. The Bordeaux he ordered was so rich and complex that after the first sip, I closed my eyes to savor the aftertaste. And when I tasted the duck, so tender it melted in my mouth, with skin so crispy it crackled, all in a rich sauce. I nearly moaned with pleasure. "Consider my entire life reevaluated," I mumbled, pushing my plate away and taking a sip of wine. Julian laughed, a deep, genuine sound. "Then my mission for the evening is accomplished." The candlelight danced on his cheekbones, and his gaze was warm, lazy, like a man enjoying the moment with no rush to let it go. "Why were you at that exhibition?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. A silence stretched between us, a silence louder than words. "I was looking for something new, or someone." My heart skipped a beat. In that moment, I realized I was being pulled into his orbit. This man wasn't just an interesting conversationalist. He was awakening something deep, something primal inside of me, and I wasn't sure I was ready to resist it. The week flew by in a single breath. Julian called the next day, and we agreed to meet again. I couldn't stop thinking about him. Why him? And most importantly, why was I so nervous about a man who could be, well, my father? He pulled up in his glossy black retro Corvette. He looked like he'd stepped off the cover of a magazine for successful men. A dark blue shirt, a perfectly tailored jacket, and the scent of expensive cologne mingling with the evening air. "Are you ready?" he asked. I nodded, though everything inside was trembling. The voice in my head was screaming, "Cinderella, you've definitely gone to the wrong ball." His apartment was even more of a shock. It wasn't just a house. It was a personal museum in a penthouse overlooking Lake Michigan. Vinyl records were lined up like soldiers in formation. A leather sofa that cost more than my college tuition occupied the living room. And in the middle of all this splendor was an exercise machine. "That's my retired friend," he joked, catching my eye. I laughed, but inside I felt so out of place. It seemed like every object here had a story, and I was just a girl in jeans with a hole in the knee. Julian noticed my discomfort. "You know, I don't collect things for the sake of the things themselves. They're memories." He pulled a record from the stack. "This is the first album I ever bought when I was 16, The Doors." He was a health fanatic. His daily routine, 6 a.m. exercise, green smoothies, meditation, work, gym. He spoke of his diet, broccoli, salmon, quinoa. "Sounds like the menu from a healthy lifestyle commercial," I interrupted, laughing. "So what do you eat?" he asked. "Ramen. Pizza. Sometimes a salad if I'm lucky." He shook his head, but there was no mockery in his eyes. "Well, I'm going to have to re-educate you." And he really did. The next morning, after we'd stayed up late watching old movies, he handed me a glass of bright green liquid. "Celery smoothie, drink up." I took a sip and nearly choked. But the best part began when he offered to teach me how to dance the twist. Right there in his kitchen, he put on an old Chubby Checker record, and within minutes, the whole house was filled with our laughter. We spun, we laughed, completely lost in our own world. The neighbors must have thought someone was abusing a senior citizen because half an hour later, there was a knock on the door. "Police, open up!" a voice boomed from behind the door. We froze, looking at each other in a moment of panic, then burst out laughing even harder. Have you ever had a date take such a wild turn? Share your story below. And if you're enjoying this, please hit that like button. When the police saw us, me, a 27-year-old crying with laughter, and him, a 58-year-old trying to compose himself, they frowned and then cracked a smile. "Well, at least someone's having fun," one of them said as they left. That night, I realized Julian was more than just a handsome man with an expensive watch. He was someone who could find joy in the little things. His next invitation intrigued me the most. I have a country house. Why don't we go away for the weekend? I agreed, though inside I was trembling with a mixture of anticipation and anxiety. What was waiting for me? His house wasn't just a country cottage. It was history. A two-story building with white shutters framed by tall maple trees. Out back, there was a terrace and a fireplace, and beyond that, the vast ocean, its sound filling the air. We spent the day walking along the coast, collecting seashells and talking about everything and nothing. That evening, he opened a bottle of wine he said was older than me. "This is a 1995 Bordeaux," he explained. "It's incredible," I whispered after a sip. "See?" he grinned. "Sometimes it's worth it to take a risk and try something new." That night changed everything. When he took my hand and led me upstairs, my heart started to pound. His bedroom was simple but elegant, with a large bed and a window overlooking the ocean. When he took off his shirt, I almost gasped. His body was taut and strong, as if carved from marble. And, well, his virtues. Let's just say, if I had been expecting a flickering candle, what I got was a full-blown bonfire. "Wow," I breathed out when he noticed my surprise. He grinned. "You think I eat broccoli just to be healthy?" But the hardest part came when I decided to introduce him to my parents. When I told them I was dating a man older than them, their reaction was loud. My mom nearly dropped her signature apple pie, and my dad, usually as calm as a placid sea, suddenly started pacing the living room. "Are you sure this isn't some kind of con man?" my mom asked, adjusting her glasses. "Or a religious fanatic?" my dad added, crossing his arms over his chest. The next day, Julian arrived at their house in his Corvette. My dad, standing on the porch in his oil-stained shirt, raised an eyebrow. "So you're going to marry my daughter?" my dad asked him directly. "You know, you're only 2 years away from my age," Julian grinned. "Didn't you get married when you were her age?" My dad froze, then burst out laughing. "Okay, I like you." But my mom took a long time to come around. That changed when Julian gave her an antique jewelry box for her birthday. She, who collected New York City magnets, cried at the gift. From then on, Julian was her favorite, and they even cooked together. Our age difference was still a challenge. At his friends' parties, I felt like a granddaughter who had wandered into a senior citizens group. They played bridge and discussed real estate. I preferred TikTok and Billie Eilish. Our first big fight was when I wanted to go to Coachella, and he suggested the opera. "You know I can't stand classical music," I said. "And you know I can't stand crowds and bad sound," he countered. In the end, he surprised me by putting on a leather jacket and coming with me to a rock concert. When I saw him singing along to Metallica in a sea of 20-somethings, I realized this man was willing to change for me. Over time, I realized our age difference wasn't a barrier, but a challenge. We complemented each other. He taught me about elegance and depth. I showed him how to live with ease and spontaneity. He taught me the beauty of patience, and I reminded him of the joy of impulse. We weren't a mismatch. We were a perfect balance. Love doesn't know age. It only knows hearts. And yes, if someone tells you that you can't love a man older than your father, just smile. Because sometimes the most beautiful stories begin where others don't even dare to look. What do you think? Can a love with such a huge age gap truly last? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Give this video a thumbs up if you believe in unconventional love, and subscribe for more stories that challenge the rules.